Different's great, but being different for the sake of being different, I'm not a big fan of, right? If you just want to be different for the sake of
technology, increased, I would hide behind it.
And you start to hear some of their challenges, and yes,
because it speaks to the core of who you are and what drives you forward. Because what makes you different is what drives you.
Welcome, everybody, to the Master Connector Show. I'm your co-host, Rob Genovesi. We want to thank you for joining us today, and we are coming at you live on LinkedIn, on YouTube, every single Wednesday, 1 p.m. Eastern Time. We hope you're joining us each week because we're bringing you amazing, amazing guests, and today is no different. In fact, we're bringing you such great guests. We got our website, which is at masterconnector.show, filled out for the rest of the year. Or at least into the next several months, but we are booked into next year. Steve does a really great job of keeping us booked with great people. But go to masterconnector.show, because if you can't catch us every week, we hope you can. But if you can't, go down that list and see who the guest is that you need to hear from. And not only that, this is an interactive show. Get in the comments. It's the Master Connector Show. We want to not just bring you a great interview, a great conversation with these pros. We want you to connect with them. We want you to connect with each other. Steve concepted this show not to be networking or just a show to bring you people with their amazing stories and skill sets and experiences, but a way for people to connect with one another. Why? Because we all need other people in order to further our opportunities. You're building a business, you're leading in your job. We want you to be able to do it by surrounding yourself with the best people you possibly can. So go to masterconnector.show. And if you want to sponsor an episode and you want to get your business name out there, you can sponsor an episode. There's a link for that. Hit it, fill it out, and we'll get you on here. Steve and I, we go back 27 years or so. Two former shy guys, two introverts. I was deathly afraid of talking, period, not just the people, but just talking. Steve was better than I was. He ran a business before I met him. Couple of degrees in a couple of different martial arts discipline. I think he just probably, as he says, he'd probably rather hit you than talk to you. So that tells you where he came from. But we both overcome a lot of obstacles in order to be able to talk with people. And obviously we're not shy anymore. So let's bring him on. He is the Master Connector. I learned so much from him. Here he is, Steve Spiro. What's up, Steve?
What's going on, Robbie G? Listen, you know what? I hear about the whole hit you versus speak to you. I had a bit of a chip on my shoulder, and I'm still kind of trying to get off of that a little bit. So yeah, it's been a tough go, but yeah, thank you. And I've learned a lot from you. I mean, you've got this way about you that it's just incredible. So iron sharpens iron, and I know we learn from each other. So appreciate you big time, bud.
Thanks.
What's going on, everyone? Steve Spiro, the Master Connector, coming at you live and direct. And listen, this is going to be an incredible show. And I have a question. Okay, so what does it really mean to create a legacy one heartbeat at a time? And there's a couple ways you can go with legacy, right? And I think, when I think of legacy, I think of, okay, what do we leave behind? And, what are the, many times people think about what type of things they're going to leave for the next generation. And that's fine. And there's nothing wrong with that. And, you want to have a succession plan and all those things. And you want to have, inheritance, and the good book talks about leaving inheritance for your loved ones, and that's all good. But to me, true legacy and what I believe true success is how many people are better because you were here, because we were here, and we're going to talk about it and have an interesting spin on that. And many times people talk about brand, and we're going to get into that a little bit. And brand can be the reputation that follows you, but are you really thinking about your brand? And do you have the ability to tell your story? I did a post earlier today about that. And a lot of people have a story to tell. They don't always necessarily know how to share that story in a way that's engaging, that is not just way over the top, too much stuff, and sometimes too short, and you miss all the good stuff, right? And so maybe touch on that a little bit, perhaps. And, obviously a big part of this show is about being authenticity, and being able to share that story, being authentic, and being a little bit vulnerable, I think is important as well, because the barriers come down. I speak of that a lot on stage about breaking barriers to create real human connection. And, through telling your story and being vulnerable, you have ability to really relate to people on that human level and really create connection, and what also happens is, when you combine trust and, people start to buy into you. And I believe a lot of times trust comes from vulnerability, but also trust comes from being a great example. And I've learned that, one of my favorite books, John Maxwell, he talks about leadership is spelled EXAMPLE. It's example, right? So what's your example? And, what kind of, how are you showing yourself up to people when you're in their presence, right? And what's the opinion of them, or what do they think about you after you're gone, and after, not just when you leave this earth and this planet, but even when you leave the room. Okay. And so important to think about all these things. And I know we may touch on career and job, and obviously that's an important piece of it too. And I believe we want to make sure that we're thinking about not just our job, but our career, and ultimately our who we are and what we represent. And many people, unfortunately, I think it's unfortunate, wrap their identity in their career or their job. But ultimately, for me, it's been, okay, what is your mission on this planet? And for me, it's, again, part of the mission of the show. It's wrapped into my personal mission, which is to be the light, uplift, and inspire and encourage, and our people better, again, because you've been able to speak into them. And again, if you're listening to this, I believe you have the seed of greatness within you. So, but we're gonna have a great time today. It's gonna be a great show. So if you're ready to have my man Robbie G, introduce our guest, type in the comments. Let's go, Robbie G. I'll pass it to you, sir.
All right, let's go, everybody. Lyndsay Dowd is a speaker, founder, author, coach, podcast host, and disruptor. She was recognized as a top 10 business coach by Apple News and was the recipient of the 2023 Award for Innovation and Excellence, and also named Business Coach of the Year. Lyndsay was also a featured guest lecturer at Harvard University. She's an accomplished leader, decorated seller, and has successfully managed large, diverse, high-performing sales teams over the last 25 years, with 23 of those years spent climbing the ranks at IBM. In creating her company, Heartbeat for Hire, she has devoted her career to transforming leadership through building irresistible culture and modern leadership practices that get the best results from their teams. She's been featured in Fortune Magazine, HR.com, Authority Magazine, Business Management Daily, Valiant CEO, and many other publications. Lyndsay is a two-time author for both Top Down Culture and a contributing author to the anthology Voices of Women. She also hosts the top 2.5% globally ranked podcast Heartbeat for Hire and is a frequent guest speaker on live and recorded shows. Today, she's the Chief Revenue Officer for Intri, where they are merging the best of technology with the best of humanity to help job seekers and those in transition land the jobs of their dreams. Please welcome to the show, Lyndsay Dowd. What's up, Lyndsay?
Hey, Rob. Hey, Steve.
We're not worthy.
We have an intro. That's a lot.
I'm out of breath with all those accomplishments.
Holy cow.
Thank you. It's great to be with you guys.
Great to have you on our show. Amazing. Wow. I mean, Rob, I think Rob is amazed, but I amaze myself. We have amazing guests come on, and you're just, the top of the top. So just appreciate you big time.
Thanks.
Yeah. Well, we're going to dig right into it. I know I touched a little bit on trust, the idea of trust, as we're, and I think it's so important in today's culture today is to develop that true trust, right? Where there's, so much posing, if you will, going on out there, and so much me focused and people that just have their own agenda, so many things like that. So community, type in hashtag trust and let's get into it. And by the way, before we do I'll get back to the question. Just want to acknowledge, thank you. Great to have Alan on here. John T is on here. I don't think he's been on the show before. It looks like he's probably one of your connections, Lyndsay. Deborah, good to see you. New friend. Excited to have you back on our, I think first time she's on the show. She showed me on a podcast I did yesterday. But Lyndsay, Lyndsay's in the comments with us. Okay. I almost called you out, Lyndsay, but great to have everyone on here. Make sure you're in the comments. We believe in LinkedIn participants, not LinkedIn lurkers. So let's get in the comments. And anyway, let's dig into it. So, okay, back to trust.
Yeah.
So how can leaders ensure they build trust as a lasting currency rather than letting it fracture into just a job?
Yeah, I mean, to me, modern leaders, the best leaders, are the ones who really truly build and value trust. And trust can be fractured in an instant. I have seen so many leaders make such terrible mistakes that at the time they might view it as bad behavior, but what happens is a reverberating effect that will affect the way that their team acts forevermore. And I've seen the worst. I've seen men standing on tables, jumping up and down, cursing at people, throwing things across the room. And I have seen people belittle others publicly. I have been belittled myself publicly. That does not inspire people. It does not create psychological safety. And your people will never perform as much as they could if they were in a really trusting, healthy environment.
Yeah, I love
So
that.
to me, trust is table stakes. And if you don't have that, you're never going to get the results that you really want.
I'm going to tell you, Lyndsay, when you said you were on the other end of, I guess, the receiving end of the tongue lashing.
Yeah.
Maybe it brought me back to my corporate days. I spent 25 years there. And we just said it in a recent podcast. I would be in 2 hours inside the boss's office getting reamed out.
Yeah.
And then I had to go back because I was running the staff. I had to go out there, put a smile on my face and say, hey, cool.
Pretend it didn't happen. Yeah.
And kind of what you're talking about, as far as the culture. I was responsible for the culture. I dubbed myself responsible because at the end of the day, people were shaking in their boots and they had to leave the room and go compose themselves because they were so upset.
Yeah.
So I felt like if I got to keep things going, I'm the one that's now got to go out there and help people calm them down,
Yeah. I mean, everybody is responsible for culture. However, when you start at the top and you model the behavior you want your leaders to embrace, this is why my book is called Top Down Culture. When you start at the top and you start saying, hey guys, I want us to have regular check-ins with our team. I want you to be asking them how their life is aside from the job. And I want you to ask them how you can be the best leader for them. That is like such a brilliant question. And it's hard to ask because you're admitting you don't know everything. But when you ask and you ask your person who's in front of you, how can I be the best leader for you? You are always going to get different answers. And that's based on age and tenure and experience and goals. And that's a beautiful thing because once you understand what this person wants, you can help them get there. And when you can create that trust and that safety for them to go after those big dreams, you are a leader they will never forget. And what I always remind people, when you become a leader for the first time or any time, you become the topic of dinner conversation. Make sure it's good.
Love that. Love that. Yeah. I can relate in a lot of ways, right? My leadership style, if you would call it that, early on when I had my advertising company was nil. I had zero leadership and I was the beat you up guy. And it was not pretty. And one day my partner back then, he said, hey, Steve, good news. The company's going to send you to a course. It's called How to Win Friends and Influence People, Dale Carnegie. And I'm like, okay, great. And basically he was telling me your leadership, your people skills suck. But it took some time for all that stuff to embrace. And then I found myself leading a team in the advertising world, more in the marketing side of things in Greenwich. And I remember there was one young lady who was kind of, leading, mentoring. Obviously I was her, quote unquote manager. And she was afraid to make mistakes. And I said, listen, I want you to have the freedom to be able to make some mistakes because this is the way you learn. And I'm not going to beat you up. We're going to learn from it. You're going to learn from it. So I really love what you're talking about. I really buy into it. Before we get to the next,
I just want to say one thing, just one thing.
Yeah.
You're my favorite kind of leader. And the reason I say that is there are so many leaders who start off crappy and they've never had a great leader. They don't know what it looks like. And they have that one leader that makes them think differently and realize that the way that they were doing it, there was a better way. And when they evolve, you will never go back to that ogre that you were But
Right.
the evolved leader that you are, you can create so much trust, and you can say I was a reformed jerk or whatever you want to say. I don't know if we can curse here, so I won't do it. But but I mean, that's my favorite kind of leader. So I love when I have guests on my show, or when I get to talk to leaders who are like, oh my God, I was the worst, but I didn't know better. And that's why I wrote the books. That's why I do the podcast. That's why I love coming on these shows. So thank you again
Great.
for having me.
Appreciate you. I just want to acknowledge a couple of people. So Samuel, welcome back on here. And of course, Yolanda, the amazing Yolanda, who's an incredible community member of the show, doesn't miss one show. It's amazing. There was one time we had tech challenges where we weren't able to see the people checking in the comments, and we're like, where's Yolanda? But she was on, we just were not able to see it. So Ari's in the house. Great to see Ari here. And got some good comments and good engagement coming in here. So get in the comments, connect with each other, make sure you're connecting. But anyway, let's keep moving here. So, one of the things that I know you're big on, and I know Rob, being a brand builder, is big on, is brand.
Yeah.
And there's obviously there's the company brand, and then there's your personal brand. And I'm a big believer in people buy from people they know, like, and trust. And so it starts with your personal brand, before it gets to the company brand, in my opinion. So let's talk about, community, type in #brand. So in your opinion, Lyndsay, why is building your personal and professional brand essential in today's world of career security instead of job security?
Yeah, I mean, there is no such thing as job security. And this is from a girl who spent 23 years at IBM. My family put in 105 years, and my father was laid off a number of times, and he bounced back every time. But still, there is no job security in the world. You have to create career security for yourself. And it was a rude awakening for me when I left corporate. All of a sudden, my network, which was my company, was no longer there. So, I mean, I had those relationships, but it wasn't built in like it was before. And so I really had to spend some time figuring out, okay, what do I talk about? Who am I? What do I want to be known for? What's my area of expertise? But not just that, why does anyone want to talk to me? And the thing that I think people miss in corporate is they mistake their brand for their title or their role. And that is such a lost opportunity. You want to really rediscover, what are you passionate about? What gets you out of bed in the morning? That's what you want to align your brand to. And guys, it's not set in stone. If you want to change it, it's yours. You can change it. If you want to change your colors, you want to change your font. I mean, don't change it all the time. That's going to look crazy. But you do want to stay current, and your interests will change. Your expertise will change. And that's good. That's growth. But without building a brand, nobody knows who you are, and nobody knows what you stand for.
And I want to ask this, and look, I mean, I'm a brand strategist. It's what I do. I do that for companies, but I did spend 25 years in corporate, and I didn't learn about brand until I left corporate in 2019. So I want to ask you this. I know right now how to build a brand for a person, a company, whatever.
Yep.
But tell me how, if a person is in our audience listening, they're going, well, I work for a company.
Yeah.
Right. That's a whole mindset that as I look back, I'm like, I still don't know how I would do that. How does a person inside a company build their personal brand?
Well, think about it. If you don't, and if you just are asleep at the wheel, and all you have is your gray little picture and no banner on your LinkedIn profile and nothing written about your about section, and you only go to LinkedIn every time you've been promoted, because I've been there, there's a better way to do it. And your company doesn't own your LinkedIn. Your LinkedIn is yours. And that is the easiest place to start to build your brand. Yes, you can do it on Instagram. Yes, you can do it on other platforms. But from a business perspective, LinkedIn's it. So, and there are other ones too. But let's just focus on LinkedIn for the moment. You want to talk about the things that you care about. If you work in sustainability, talk about that. If you work on, I don't know, digital currency, talk about that. It doesn't matter what that is. But I always say to all of my clients, when I work with them on building their brand, include something personal. And I don't mean like a big laundry list of things, but one or two things that allows people to connect to you and relate to you. And on mine, it has mother of twins or mom of twins and wiener dog lover. I have 2 dachshunds. And the amount of people that connect with me on those 2 things, it's staggering, but I made it easy. And people love to be able to connect easily. So, oh, Linz, you have twins? I'm a twin. My brother's a twin, whatever. It just makes it easy. And that's a great way to sell. It's a great way for people to remember you. So it's an easy thing to think about.
So
I'm
simple.
gonna, yeah, for sure. And I'm gonna take it another level. I think that your brand, it can also be your reputation in the company, right? Maybe you're the hardest worker there, or maybe you're the most creative, or maybe there's other areas, right? Like Rob and I were part of a business team at one point, and you know, uh, I don't think that I was labeled the master connector, but I think in a sense I was becoming the master connector in that environment. So you could create a brand for yourself, even if LinkedIn, I think, is incredible, and I agree with you.
Yeah.
But but that's one piece of it. But also your reputation, I think, also is important. And by the way, back to job security, I agree with you. There's no such thing as job security. To me, it's become an oxymoron, like Biggie Smalls and Jumbo Shrimp. It's just they don't kind of equate, So
you're wasting precious real estate, and you're wasting precious time if you're not telling people who you are. And your example of being a master connector, I for sure would push you to put that on your title. And if you are, I like to fix broken things, like that is a skill set that companies covet. They love that. So think about those things that you do all the time that set you apart. Why do people call you? Why do they pick up the phone?
Yeah. And Ari's is giving another one. Military intelligence. That's another one. There you go. The oxymorons. They're coming now. That's good stuff. But anyway, Deborah, such a powerful question, Rob. Good stuff. Yeah. Appreciate you. So, hey, we were talking a little bit earlier in the opening on stories.
Yes.
I'm big on telling stories. And, number one, when you're talking to clients, and if you're in a business development role or whatnot, you have the ability to tell stories, and that's a way of creating testimonies, right? And ways to share how you can help them without saying, "Well, I could do this for you. I could do this for you." No, well, let me tell you about what Joe Electric the challenge they came in, and this is what we found out that they had challenges with, and this is what we needed, and all those things help. But also telling stories, not just from that perspective, but your own story. Super important. So my question is, and community, type in #story. So what role does storytelling play in shaping legacy, and why is it a skill that everyone really should master, whether you're job seeking or not?
Think about it this way. You are going to continue to meet people your entire life, whether you're at a cocktail party, or you're at a conference, or you're networking on the sidewalk, or a parent teacher thing, whatever. You are going to encounter people, and you need to be able to speak articulately about who you are. And I get to do this for a living. So do you guys. So you get to talk to people and ask them, share your story. That's the first question I ask on my show. And if I ask the question and someone says, "Well, in the 4th grade," I'm like, "Oh, where's the blanket? I'm going to take a nap." Like, that's a terrible way to start. So you have to think of, how can I tell my story in a way that is going to make people remember me, that is going to make people walk away and be like, "Shit, I want to learn more. That was really, wow, she did a lot." And so how you do this, there's an art to it. And I love working with clients on this, but I like to have an arc. Like, you talk about, first your chops, who you are, what you bring to the table. And then you kind of take them on a little bit of a ride, and you're building up, and then you crash and burn, and you talk about something terrible that happened to you. But we're not focused on the car crash. We're focused on the growth and what you did from that moment. And that's what makes you memorable. And so I love telling these stories of resilience. I love when job seekers do this, because it separates you from I'm an enterprise sales rep, and I had very large quotas, and I worked with really large teams, and snooze fest. You're probably awesome, but nobody is going to remember that. And so you have to come at it from a way that is very human, relatable, and smart. And so whenever you can bring in those heartstring moments, that changes everything. And it really, really is so exciting. So I love doing this. I've gotten pretty good at telling my own story. I do it every day.
Oh, yeah.
But I think everybody learns this skill, or what they should learn this skill. And if they don't have it, call me. I'll help you.
I find it so interesting that you say this. And look, audience, if you were here at the beginning, you heard me read off Lyndsay's accomplishments. She's no slouch when it comes to this stuff. Me, I kind of fall into stuff, I believe. And so when I started my business, Lyndsay, I had no real client success to talk about. There was a couple, but not a lot. So when I met somebody, when I was talking with them, I could say it never really mattered to me when people said, I do this and I do this and I do this, because I would fall asleep right in front of their face without them knowing. Because telling people what you do, it has no bearing on whether or not they're going to hire you, reach out to you, whatever. You talk about memorable. So I didn't know what to do. So you know what I did? I told them how I became a brand strategist, because hearing you say it, I didn't know this.
Yeah.
I was busting my butt on social media on about 6 different platforms, hammering it and getting no attention. And so I was crashing and burning. So what did I do? I turned to brand strategy, redeveloped my company with a brand strategy, and it took off.
Yeah.
And I tell people that, and how I got success for clients using strategy.
Yeah.
And they went, wow, that's a great story. And they remembered me. And I wasn't trying to get the business. I just wanted to be recalled when they thought, like, maybe I need a brand guy. And that's what it was. And then I'll end with this. You know, it's like you're saying, you got good at telling your story. I think this is a key moment for audience members to honestly remember this. You don't have to have a great story. You just have to learn to tell it in a very compelling way, so that, like Lyndsay said, so you get remembered. That's all.
That's it. It separates you from the pack. And whenever you can really dig in on those moments that are just awful, they remember the awful, but they remember you because you thrived, because you got out of it. And that's the point. And it's funny because it's a vulnerable conversation when I talk to people about this. And when we start to build these stories, I'm like, what was the worst thing that ever happened to you? And they're like, I don't want to talk about that. And I'm like, okay, well, I'm just saying, you're going to sound like everybody else. So why don't we talk about the growth from that moment? And then they're like, I'm starting to get it. Then they come around.
What I've learned is you want to map out your story and say to yourself, is this needed? Does this add any value? And, you know, like I mentioned in my story, born and raised in the Bronx, because I want people to understand I'm gritty.
That's right. That was
that's
the first
why I
word that
say
came to
it, right?
mind. Grit. Yep.
Right. You know, like I'm not like a guy that came from money. That's kind of what that statement starts with. So everything is very purposeful when you're crafting your story. Just keep that in mind. But anyway, we're at the bottom of the hour here. I want to slip in real quick, since the whole show is about legacy. Let's see if we can slip in real quick. Let's keep it concise if we can, like Lyndsay. But legacy, community, type in #legacy. When you think about leaving a legacy, how do daily choices align with the bigger picture of the impact you want to make?
Yeah, you guys said it at the top. You know, your legacy is what people say when you're not in the room. And I ask this question on my show. It's every single episode. You know, what would you like your legacy to be? And it's fascinating how different all the answers are. Some people are like, I just want to be a good dad. And some people are like, I want people to remember, you know, XYZ because I believed in this so much, or whatever those moments are. You've limited time on this earth. So what is the impact you want to have? And if you feel like you cannot make an impact with what it is you're doing, you might be misaligned. You might need to go to where your heart is to really make a difference. Now, I was the kind of worker that I could get easily inspired by whatever I was doing, because I was like, I'm ready to go. Let's do this. And, you know, that got probably on a lot of people's nerves. But when you can be enthusiastic and you can be passionate about what it is you believe in, your legacy will come. And so, you know, it's always nice when you get a LinkedIn, request from someone like, your name keeps popping up all over the place, and I love what you stand for. Okay, then I'm doing a good job. So you want to make sure that, just like with building your brand, it's memorable, it's from your heart, it's meaningful, and that's going to serve you well.
Love it. Great stuff. Speaking of serving you well, I know you want to encourage people to reach out to you. So tell them the best way. I know you've got a link tree that we're going to post, but what's the best way for our community? Because the community, you need to definitely connect with Lyndsay for sure. Get her book, dig into everything she's doing for sure.
Yeah, thanks. Yeah, I'm very active on LinkedIn. Please connect with me. Say that you heard us here, and that I'm friends with Steve. I'm on all the socials except X. And if you want to be connected, just go out to my website, heartbeatforhire.com, and you can find all of the socials there. My name is difficult to spell, so Heartbeat for Hire is a little bit easier to type, but you can get it right from here. But would love to connect. So please reach out.
Appreciate you big time. Phenomenal job. Thank you for blessing our community. Really appreciate you. Put you in the green room here, and look forward to connecting again. Thanks again, Lyndsay. You were awesome. Appreciate you. All right. Wow. Amazing. Incredible. So, well, listen, if that wasn't good enough, check out next week's show, episode 228 on the 10th of September, From Burnout to Breakthrough with Sarah Reuter. It's going to be a great show. And Sarah, she stepped in a little bit. She was later on in the year, and she stepped in. And so we're going to have her on a little sooner than we expected, which is awesome. But I want to finish up. And by the way, if you want to learn more about some of the up and coming episodes beyond next week, go to masterconnected.show. If, like Rob said, if you want to learn how to sponsor an episode, same place, masterconnected.show. Rob does a great job keeping it up to date. Amazing. Get to that. And you can, through that, get to our Spotify and Apple Podcast and our YouTube channel. It's all there, accessible right through the masterconnected.show. But want to end here with a quick story, right? Malala Yousafzai, I'm not sure if I'm saying that right, turned personal tragedy into a global mission, choosing to create a legacy of education and empowerment for young girls around the world. Surviving an attack meant to silence her only fueled her determination to speak louder and advocate harder and build lasting change through the Malala Fund. Her heartbeat of courage continues to inspire millions, proving that one voice, authentic and unyielding, can transform the future for generations. Folks, we too can choose to rise above adversity, use our voice, and let this, the story that we're creating remind everyone, ourselves and everyone else, that our challenges are not the end of our story. They're the spark that can ignite change and hope and connection, and ultimately go on and be that light to many. God bless. We'll see you next week.
And you start to hear some of their challenges, and yes,
because it speaks to the core of who you are and what drives you forward. Because what makes you different is what drives you.